here. All right, it's gonna happen.
All right, let's see if this plays nice. All right, looks like it should be going live here. Audio. Test, test, test. Can you hear me? I know that there's a little bit of a delay in the audio.
Well, let me know when we're good to go.
Yep. Good. Okay. All right.
We're good to go.
Well, yep. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Southfield Nice Up Tech Talk. We'd like to thank Brown Iron Brew House for hosting, and we would like to welcome Tristan Buffington with his presentation of how to hack a car for fun and no profits.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hello. So, how many people here are car people? Like cars, like tinkering with cars? We got one. All right, great. So, I'm not a car person. I kind of hate cars. I drive a crappy Buick. It's not great. It's old. But I wanted to tinker with it, and I wanted to see what I could get out of it. I wanted to mess around with the data in it. I wanted to mess around with the modules in it. And so that's what this talk is going to be all about. It's tinkering with a car, how to hack it, and you're probably going to spend money in the process. So you will not profit at all from this. So who am I? Why should you care? What's the big deal about this? I am a 4-time second place DEF CON finalist at the Car Hacking Village. Competed every year, and I've gotten second every year. Leaves a bittersweet taste in your mouth, but I'm happy to at least go out to DEF CON and enjoy my time there. I'm the former lead penetration tester at a automotive cybersecurity company. I kind of traveled around the US, went and helped automotive manufacturers secure their systems, figure out what was going wrong with them, did the reverse engineering, evaluated their networks, mobile applications, the whole suite of stuff. And in general, I just like to tinker with stuff and reverse engineer software, firmware, applications, binaries, hack them up, throw them in Gydra, and enjoy that. So, some common terms you might hear, OEM, original equipment manufacturer, think Ford, think GM, think Toyota. Anyone else falls under that. And CAN, Control Area Network. This is a very common protocol in vehicles. It is where a lot of diagnostics happen on vehicles, and it's where sensor values come from. So think your engine telling the instrument cluster how many RPMs we have at any given point in time. That would probably be over CAN. So I think it's very important if you're going to hack a car, it's necessary that you focus on what you want. So what are things that you might want when going in looking at to evaluate a car? Maybe you want to make some flashy modifications. You want to change the background picture of your head unit, your cluster. Maybe you could swap some values out, change the logo from Ford to something more enjoyable. Who knows? If you want to own your data, maybe you want to go figure out and reverse engineer these signals yourself. You want to go see, oh, this is where I was at this point in time. I want to make my own dongle, collect some data here, see the RPMs of an engine, see the acceleration, see the speed, see all that stuff. See what data is being sent out of your car. You can do that. Sometimes you might just want to see the firmware, so you can modify and tinker with things yourself. If you want to extract the firmware for a head unit to do some modifications, you will probably need to get the firmware out first. Sometimes it'll be online that the dealer manufacturer distributes. Oftentimes it won't be. Finally, jailbreaking. So if you want to run your own code on your head unit, if you want to run your own code on your car, you need to jailbreak it. And that is typically not easy, as security gets better and better every single year. So where are you going to get the data? Where are you going to get the parts? Where are you going to get the stuff for this? You do not want to rip this module out of your own car. Your car will not work if you take electronics out of it. It will not work. So we can go online to some retailers. eBay is great. eBay will typically have what you need. You can put any car part in there and find a replacement for anywhere from $20 to $1,000. Really depends on the part, depends on the model, depends on the make, and depends on the supply. That's why I said it's no profit. You're going to lose money if you want to source parts. Another great site is carpart.com. I don't use this. I use eBay. I've had great success with eBay. Another place is the junkyard. There are plenty in Michigan. You can go there and they will have whatever you want typically. Some of them will let you even go back and rip parts out of a car. You can get whatever computer you want. You can even get the little circular saw and cut them out yourself. They typically won't let you do that, but if you slip them an extra 20, they might let you do it. Now, when you go to a junkyard, you're going to want to come in with a part in mind. At my previous company, we set out to go to a junkyard to get some modules to do research on, and I walked in there and went up to the guy and asked him for any instrument cluster at all. And he just kind of stared at me for 5 seconds and was like, for what car? And I don't really know what he thought I was trying to do, but he certainly charged me more just because I wasn't looking for a specific part or anything. So if you're going to go to one, have a car in mind that you're trying to get parts out of. That is what I would recommend. And again, don't take stuff out of your own car. It will not function. Once you have parts out of your car, you're going to want to set something up. I like to set stuff up on a bench. And what does that look like? It might look something like this, a rat's nest of wires and components and parts all over the place. So over here, this is a setup that I'm working on for my car. I have the instrument cluster in the top left, a immobilizer in kind of the middle, a gateway or body control module to the right of that, and at the very far right, that's an engine control module. And then in the center of the screen, there is the kind of box over there that has a bunch of stuff sticking into it and kind of looks like it's half open. That is the brain behind the head unit for my car. And on the far right, there is the screen for the head unit for my car. Not always together. Sometimes it's a separate part. Initially, when I was doing this, I really thought that this thing on the right was the head unit, and I was very confused how they fit Linux onto this very small chip, but they did not put Linux on that. So, you have a bunch of parts, you have them on a bench, you've got them off of eBay. How can you connect to it? Well, there are a lot of interfaces a car has. You might have cellular, you might have Wi-Fi, you might have Bluetooth, you might have your tire pressure system, you might have a keyless entry system. And inside the vehicle, you might have your infotainment unit, you might have USB, your OBD2 connector, which is your onboard diagnostic connector. It's kind of mandated by law for emissions testing, and it's going to be to the left, under the steering column typically. If you've ever had one of those insurance dongles, it plugs into the OBD2 port. And you could potentially splice into your CAN bus, your network, if you are very adventurous. People do this. Recently there was a Toyota RAV4 issue where people were ripping the headlights out and splicing into the CAN bus there to trick the immobilizer that the correct signals has been sent. So they would unlock the door and then drive off with the car. Don't do that. Anyways, if you want to connect to cellular, this is something that you can do. This is a software-defined radio. This Blade RF right here, I believe, is maybe $500 to $800. It's expensive, but it's a full duplex software-defined radio that will allow you to spoof a cell tower and get the car to connect to it if you know how to do the right thing. Don't do this. It's very illegal. If you want to do that, do it in a Faraday box or a Faraday tent or a Faraday cage. You do not want to intercept someone's phone because they will not be able to dial emergency services. Do not do that. Most things these days are very protected, but some systems, some phones will fall back to old legacy technologies like very poor security on it. Something else you can connect to, Wi-Fi. So a vehicle might have a hotspot. You could probably connect to that. You might want to port scan the car after you do that and see what's going on. Can you talk to anything in there? It will either have a very strict firewall or no firewall at all. You might even be able to SSH into the car from the hotspot. In practice, that doesn't happen much anymore. But if your cars are over a decade old, I recommend you try that if they have a hotspot. You might be surprised. Additionally, you can make the car be a Wi-Fi client at times. It would probably be somewhere in the settings. It can say join a network. If you do, maybe you want to have a network with this Wi-Fi adapter. You want to sniff out what the car is doing. What servers are it talking to? Are the communications encrypted? Can you downgrade the communications? Did they forget to enable the flag that says actually check the certificate is valid? That happens much more often than you'd think. And finally, hard-coded stations. The car might be programmed to automatically connect to a dealership station or a backdoor manufacturer station. This is for diagnostics and testing purposes, but this might be enabled in the field, and your car might be trying to join a network. I believe as recently as 2019, Tesla's had something like this where they would join a Tesla manufacturer network with a pre-shared key, and if you had that, you could get a Tesla to join your network. And some people at Pwn to Own in 2019, which is a prestigious hacking competition, leveraged this to be able to get code execution on the car and unlock it remotely. It was very cool. Next, on the inside of the car, we have the USB port and the OBD port. USB could potentially contain software updates or media files. If there's a buggy parser for media files, you might just be able to get code execution on your head unit. In practice, hard to do. You probably have to have the firmware and find a bug there, but not impossible. And then you have your onboard diagnostics. This is the little plug, like I mentioned earlier, to the bottom left of your steering column. And it's mandated by law to be there where you can do diagnostic testing. Typically, you'll be able to talk to every single module in the car from this point of view, from a somewhat gated perspective behind something called a gateway, which is going to hinder your fun. It's no good. So you want to get around this, you will probably want to talk directly CAN or GM LAN, which is a controller area network, or General Motor local area network. On the right here is a tool that would allow you to manually splice in and connect to and start talking to modules in a vehicle or on a bench. This is called a Cannibal. I believe this is the Cannibal 2. You can get them on Amazon for about $20. I find them to be reasonable and good for my purposes. There are also much more expensive solutions like vector software, where you might be able to spend $500 in an entry unit to start sniffing and sending signals. Again, no profit. So next, you're going to want to power the module up and actually get connected to it. How can we do this? Well, you're going to want a power supply. You're going to need to find some way to apply power to the module. This cheap little one over here is $35. I have a couple of these. I've not had it catch on fire for myself yet. It's great. I always worry about this. This one has a label that says, always monitor this, never leave it alone. You probably want to buy a better one than this, honestly. Typically, a module will require 12 volts on battery lines and 12 volts on the ignition line, as well as having a place for the electrons to go back to on ground. I'm not an electrical engineer, but I know a couple of concepts. So once you find some way to connect battery positive and ignition, you are going to want to get on some data lines. Things aren't interesting if you can't kind of talk to it. So on this, we have a little connector here where in the bottom left, we can see that there are some cables sticking out of this module. It's a little hard to see, but on the bottom right here is a repair manual, which by law, the manufacturer has to provide to you somehow. They'll make it hard to find, they'll make it hard to get, and it might be kind of expensive, but they have to give you a way to do it because of the right to repair. They were mandated by law to be able to provide these things so people could both understand the parts that are connecting to their car as well as repair them. It's great. So once you get connected to something like this, you will probably want to get your cables connected and set your high line on this Cannibal to the CAN high, which is the CAN plus, and the low line to CAN minus, and then make sure your grounds are connected. So another example is in this case, where this is the theft deterrent module for my car or the immobilizer. You can see that I have a red dot for battery, purple for ignition, black is ground, and orange for data. So I kind of like to keep it color-coded. When you have a bunch of wires running all over on your desk, if it's not color-coded, you're going to have a really bad time, where you'll have a yellow wire for ground maybe, and then you'll have a white wire for ground, and then the same for power. It gets very confusing. You want to be a little consistent here. So this is another section of the repair manual down here, where there is this connector information here that we can see, and this is the left side connector. Now, The difference between these two that you can see is there's this little notch here and there's two notches here. Unfortunately, only the one connector here really makes sense. The other connector for the right side also shows that it has two of these notches down at the bottom, but I kind of guessed and got lucky and didn't send a bunch of voltage into the wrong place on this module. Otherwise, it could have fried it and I would have had to get a new one and try again. Anyways, they described the pins down over here, and the ones that we're interested in, like I said, is battery voltage, ignition voltage, run crank ignition voltage, and signal ground. Often, you will not need to provide accessory ignition voltage. You can just get away with ignition, run crank, battery, and ground. Accessory will typically put it in a slightly different mode. Really depends on what you're going for. So, once you get everything connected, on Linux, if you have your little cannibal connected, you can get up and running with two commands. You will have sudo IP-link setup can0 type can bitrate 500,000. And what this says is we're going to make a simulated network interface on Linux called can0, and we're going to try to interpret the data on this interface as can data at this particular bitrate. This is very common for bit rates, but there are different ones. There's 250K and there is 1,000,000, as well as 125K, I believe. When in doubt, you can kind of just go through and try all four of those, and you'll typically see some data. When in doubt, brute force it. Anyways, these are CAN packets right here. So we can see a timestamp, an interface, a little ID for a message, and the data for a message. And down here is a Wikipedia page for the actual structure and packet of a CAN message. You have an arbitration ID right here, which is the data before the pound sign. You have some control data, which you typically don't see. You get some data length, and then you get some data. This is kind of the entry point for doing any sort of reverse engineering signals engineering work, where now you have the data, you can send and receive it, and you can start sniffing and doing interesting things. Where can you go from here? Well, you'll take the CAN utils. It's a very good suite of software that's on GitHub, and you can start sniffing, sending out, receiving data, replaying data. You can record a signal. So let's say that you're spliced into a network on your car, or you're less adventurous and you're just doing something on a bench. You touch some sensor somewhere, maybe the door unlock signal, and you want to try to record and replay that to see if it will unlock your doors. There you go. You can do that. Additionally, you can send diagnostic messages. There's a software up here on the screen, Carrying Caribou. I believe it was written by some people who wanted to make diagnostic testing more accessible for the world, and they released it, and it's on the GitHub page right here. Really, creativity is the limit, and that is kind of an entry point for car hacking and signals reverse engineering. This kind of ends the talk here as I'm getting you guys all excited for this. So, any questions? Awesome, it was a great talk though. No questions, everything was explained. Yes?
So I guess back to the signal timing diagram. So
Yes.
does the CAN bus not have a clock line, or does it reduce the clock?
Nope, no clock. It's a two-wire protocol, so one of the lines is high, one of the lines is low, and when they're apart, I believe they are recessive, and when they're together, they are dominant, so 0 and 1. No clock, though. Everyone just agrees on the bit rate.
How much does it cost to get started in
Yeah, so if you want to power, if you have some way to provide a power supply can be anywhere from $15 to a couple $100. The one that I use that I've had no problems with is $35. Works great. A module will cost you anywhere from $20 to $1,000. Typically that's on the lower end, unless you have a very high-end car or the parts are very obscure, hard to get, in which case they'll charge you a lot more money for it. And the ability to connect to it, again, the Cannibal thing that I recommended is about $20 or so on Amazon or AliExpress. So all in total, that's probably going to run you maybe $100 to get started with maybe 1 or 2 modules. And then, some wires and stuff to connect up to it and get connected to on Linux. That's why I said no profit. You're going to lose money on this stuff. No, no. If you don't have any experience, I wouldn't recommend that. Now, it won't hurt to like listen to signals or listen to data the car will send out, but in practice, it's very unlikely you'll damage anything. In practice, I don't know if. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. I've done it on my car a handful of times. Hasn't ruined the car, but I don't know.
One wrong way, wrong place, your car's
It's typically more redundant than that. I mean, they're meant to withstand lightning strikes and all sorts of bad conditions, right? It's very interesting, though, to plug into your car and start getting data off of it, right? So there are safe ways to do it, and just listening to the data that's coming off of it definitely is safe. Again, I'm not liable for whatever you do. If you break your car, that's on you. But I think it'd be cool. Yeah. Sure. What? Sorry, there's trivia in the day of competition at DEF CON. So I'll tell you from last year. Rivian showed up. They had a bunch of their modules. They had their Rivian truck and their Rivian delivery van. And they also had like a mock head unit where it was the screen attached to a frame. And the goal was to get onto it. They had inserted some intentional vulnerabilities into their systems, and you'd go reverse engineer that, go assess that, and try to capture a flag, which if you're able to get code execution on the head unit, that would be a flag, for example. And there were some other challenges there that were pretty interesting. A lot of it is signal reverse engineering, module hacking, all sorts of stuff like that.
Are you bringing your equipment with you? Your power supply and adapters?
No power supplies, typically just the adapters, the small ones. At DEF CON, they might have stuff there for you to play with, but they won't always. And the equipment might be in limited supply, as everybody might want to tinker with it and go play around with stuff.
One of these competitions, if you find something that's a bug, but they didn't purposely put it there, you still get points?
There's no points for the competition probably for that, but you could go talk with the vendor and go tell them all about it and go report it. They might give you brownie points. I don't know. Sure.
Regarding the protocol itself,
Yeah.
how many of those are actually open? How many have actually figured out?
So if you're looking at a stream of data for the first time, a company called Comma AI manufactures or distributes some software called OpenDBC, which is a repository of a bunch of reverse engineered signals for your car. They've spent a lot of time going into this, as the manufacturer typically will not publish this data. It's typically painstakingly reverse engineered from going on a drive and noticing, hey, we turn the steering wheel this way, we turn the steering wheel that way, and the data kind of correlates to that at that point in time. There's a couple great talks on it. If you're interested, Comma AI, like I said, has this OpenDBC GitHub repo, and they have some other talks on, one, porting their software to your car, which I'll talk about in a second. Actually, no, it's very cool. I want to talk about it. So Comma AI manufactures a device called the Open Pilot, I believe, or I'm going to butcher this. But what it is something that you can plug into the rear view mirror of your car, and typically there will be some sort of way to connect it to the CAN bus there. And it is able to transform your car into a car that can drive itself. So if your car has adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist, it might be supported by Comma AI. You might be able to, for $1,000 or $2,000, buy this modified Android phone, plug it in, and have your car drive itself. You can put AI into your car. It's great.
Now, is that the good AI or bad?
AI is pretty neutral for now. Yes?
Is there a way for the average person to contribute to listen to their car and then contribute that data back to the reverse engineered?
Yes, of course. So Comma AI has an open list of bounties for data that they are interested in someone finding, as well as they're always interested to support and incorporate more vehicles and more streams of data into their car. So Yes, I believe they run like an open bounty page on GitHub. No more questions? All right. Well, that was fun. I'm glad you guys all enjoyed the talk. Glad you guys engaged. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. And thank you, Tristan, for giving
Of
such
course.
a great
Thanks for
talk.
giving me the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, and thanks again to Brown Iron Brew House for hosting tonight. Our next meeting will be the fourth Thursday of the month, which should be the 26th. We'll be having a social. Join the Discord for more information on that and future meetings. And otherwise, I hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you.